I'd like to call the meeting, the special meeting of the Florence City Council to order. Please stand. We pray for the wisdom to make decisions that are beneficial to the people represented here. Empower us to speak honestly, reflect wisely, and vote with integrity. We seek your guidance tonight. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mr. Carroll.
Present.
Ms. Chambers.
Here.
Mr. Wynn.
Here.
Ms. Kemper.
Here.
Ms. Wingo.
Here.
Mr. Osborne. Mayor, we have a quorum.
We have approval of the minutes of the business meeting, November 12th, 2024. You should have received in your packets. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Ms. Wingo?
Second.
Second, Mr. Carroll. Any discussion? I'm sorry. We had a motion by Ms. Wingo, a second by Mr. Carroll. Seeing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We do have a presentation from John Chamberlain, who will present from Owen and Chamberlain, who will present our annual audit findings. Welcome.
All right, thank you, Mayor. My name is John Chamberlain. I'm a CPA and partner at Chamberlain Owen and Company. We're a CPA firm in Erlanger that specializes in audits of governmental entities, and we appreciate the opportunity to do the work again this year for the city of Florence. I want to thank the mayor and specifically Linda Chapman for taking good care of us when she was here. Jason has also helped in that process in his first week on duty, but Linda was instrumental in helping us get all this done. So I'd be remiss if I didn't include her in this last presentation for her work. The slideshow here. So this is our audit opinion that your financial statements are fairly presented. It's what's called an unmodified opinion, meaning there's no modifications to the opinion that are required. And that's the highest opinion that we give, and that it means that the financial statements are fairly presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. We also, as a part of every governmental audit, we do a review of your internal controls to ensure that your riskiest assets are protected. And we showed that there were no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in internal controls that we were required to report. We also, as a part of every governmental audit, review compliance. That would be compliance with the Kentucky Revised Statutes, any bond loan covenants, CERS contributions, anything like that, grant requirements, and no non-compliance issues to report in this audit as well. We do provide a governance letter to the council. And just a couple of highlights of that letter, that 2 or 3 page letter. No audit adjustments. That means that we weren't required to adjust anything that Linda had done in the financial statements. No disagreements with management or difficulties performing the audit. We did disclose significant accounting estimates for depreciation and SERS that are noted there. And then we had no management comments to issue this year, suggestions for improvement, anything like that. Let's get into some numbers. That's what accountants love to do. Cash across all your funds increased about $14,000 in 2024. That's the green bar there, up to $118 million. Investments decreased about $250,000 in 2024. The General Finance Officers Association has a rule of thumb that we like to use. How much cash is too much? How much is just enough? They usually say that 3 to 6 months of cash of your operating expenditures. So 3 to 6 months of your operating expenditures in cash on hand is a solid number. For the city of Florence, across both your business and proprietary funds, 3 months of cash on hand would be about $15 million. Obviously, 6 months would be about $30 million. So you have $118 million cash on hand, so you have about 2 years, 23 months worth of cash on hand. About 109 million of that is in the governmental part of the city, and about $9 million in your business type activities. Also notice that the blue bar, that's your capital assets, and that continues to increase. That's net of accumulated depreciation as well. This is the liabilities of the city. The yellow are your current liabilities. Those are up about 1.6 million, and that's really, you had about 1.2 million in opioid settlement funds that we listed as deferred revenue for the year. You know, you're having to, that money has to sit there until you can figure out how to spend it, basically. It's a very restricted settlement. There's only so much you can spend it on, so you have to be very careful how you spend it. And so you've got about, obviously about 1.2 million at June 30th that had come in there. So that's why that yellow has increased. That's your current liabilities. The orange is the debt associated with your pension and OPEB liabilities. You see a significant drop, about 16, almost $17 million down from last year. This is measured at June 30th of 2023. So the 24 amount that's recorded in your statements is measured at June 30th, 2023. So there's a year lag in that. So the 2023 market was dramatically improved over the 2022 market, and so the portion of the actuarial pension liability and OPEB liability that the market's responsible for, the market's obviously, since you have high market performance, your pension liability and OPEB liabilities have decreased. In fact, we saw for non-hazardous employees this year, it's actually flipped to a net pension asset, meaning that it's 104% funded. So that's actually, you've actually flipped, again, just for non-haz and just for OPEB. So one out of the four different branches of it is actually at a net pension asset this year. So that's pretty interesting. The red is your long-term debt, and you see there about $1.5 million. Most of that is in your current portion and long-term portion of your compensated absences for your employees, and then the remainder of your debt that you have on your general obligation bonds. You only have about 1.6 million remaining of the obligation there. So for all governmental revenues and expenditures, so this does not include your proprietary water sewer funds, your expenses outpaced your revenues. Expenses of about $60.8 million. Your revenues about $60,300,000. So that's about a $564,000 net loss compared to a $714,000 net loss in the year before. Remember, you are bringing forward a $113 million fund balance, that net loss, so it's really only about a 0.5%. Sounds like a big number until you look at your fund balance. So you're bringing forward a fund balance of $113 million. So you're just eating into that very slowly. So outstanding management to budget. Revenues by function for your governmental funds. Again, total revenues right at $60 million. That's about a 3% increase from the prior year. Licenses and permits, by far your largest revenue of $33 million, about a 3% increase. Payroll taxes increased. Business and license fees increased, that type of thing. We've seen that in a lot of bedroom communities in northern Kentucky where people that have worked in Cincinnati, maybe people at Fidelity, people at P&G who are working from home now. You're seeing a lot more business payroll taxes because they're working from home. So if they live in the city of Florence and are working from home, you're starting to get those payroll taxes versus the city where the home office is, if you will. Your property taxes at $10.9 million, that increased about 6%, really through valuation increase. You obviously didn't increase your property tax, so that's through increase of valuation. And then charges for services, about a 20% increase. EMS run fees, one of the reasons for that increase, those have gone up. Intergovernmental decreased about $3.2 million, and that's really because you had the ARPA funds in the prior year that we recognized. I think there were several $1 million worth of ARPA funds last year that we recognized, didn't have those this year. And then interest, about a $2 million increase in interest due to all of your funds being held in the bank and higher interest rates, that we all should be seeing on our bank accounts. Expenditures for your governmental funds right at $60.8 million. Again, that's a 3% increase compared to last year. Admin expenditures, about a 26% increase. Police expenditures right at $12.6 million, about a 7% increase. Your hazardous SIRS rates did increase, so that's part of that. Fire, about $12.7 million, and that's down from the prior year. And then they had purchased a fire truck in the prior year, so that's one of the reasons that's down. And then public services right at $30.2 million, 4% increase there, with multiple public service projects happening in the current year. These next couple of slides just show some historical over the past 5 years by the type of your function. And you can see, those numbers, although big, they haven't varied dramatically in the past 5 years. So that's your admin expenditures. That's again 26% increase. Police at 7. Fire, again, you see the purchase of the truck. It kind of pulls it back in if you look at it compared to the other 5 years. And public works. Okay, this next is revenue versus expenditures for your proprietary funds. So this is your water and sewer and your golf course. And the expenditures at $6.7 million outpaced the revenues at $16.3 million. About a $546,000 loss compared to a $425,000 loss compared to the prior year. I do want to caution you, though, even though a $500,000 loss sounds like a big number, that does include about $2.3 million in non-cash depreciation that runs through that fund. So on a cash basis, if you kind of remove that depreciation that we have to include in a proprietary fund, you really have about a $1.7 million net income in that fund, without depreciation. And those both, if you'll notice, the revenues and the expenditures for both did increase pretty significantly from last year. So total revenues, water fees up about 8% at $7.2 million. Sewer charges, about 3% increase at $2.8 million. The health and dental fee, that's your internal health insurance fund, about $3.1 million, and that really comes from the city. So that comes from each of your city departments, so it's self-funded. So a 3% increase there, and the golf course, a 24% increase at $2.6 million. I just want to point out that the golf course had a $521,000 increase over the prior year, had an $800,000 increase the year before, and so you can kind of see some of those infrastructure improvements that you made out there, are starting to see returns. So I'm going to point that out. Expenditures for proprietary funds, water and sewer service, at $10.2 million, an 8% increase. Health and dental, about a 7% increase at $3.7 million. And then the golf course at $2.787, about a 4% increase there. All right, that's me. Good audit report. Any questions, anything that I can answer, clarify, give a detailed explanation on how SIRS works?
Anyone have any questions?
Thank you, John.
All right, well, thank you for coming. We appreciate the
All right.
report.
Thank you very much.
We have a second reading of ordinance O-19, 2024. It's an ordinance adopting and approving a zoning map amendment from suburban residential 1, SR1, to urban residential 1, UR1, for an approximate 28-acre area located along the east side of Gunpowder Road, including the property at 9104 to 9108 Gunpowder Road, and the property having a parcel identification number of 062.00-00-120.00. Florence, Kentucky, to allow for the development of a 284-unit multifamily residential development. This is BBB Developers LLC /KPD Developers LLC. The effect of this ordinance is to allow a zoning map amendment from suburban residential 1 to urban residential 1 for an approximate 28-acre area located on the east side of Gunpowder, including the property at 9104 to 9108 Gunpowder Road, and the property having a parcel identification number of 062.00-00-120.00. Boone County and Florence, Kentucky, to allow for the development of a 284-unit multifamily residential development in conjunction with the proposed annexation of the approximate 28-acre site into the city of Florence. The full text of ordinance 019-2024 can be viewed, including its exhibits, is available for examination in the office of the city clerk of the city of Florence, Kentucky, 8100 Ewing Boulevard, Florence, Kentucky, during regular office hours. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Ms. Wingo? Second, Mr. Nguyen. Any discussion? We did talk about this at a caucus meeting and a previous business meeting.
Can I ask a couple of questions? So we have this timeline for beginning these condos in phases. And I was just wondering, what happens if what's the process if the builder disregards this time frame that we've set up? How does that work?
We would issue them a citation. They can't do it. They cannot obtain their occupancy permit. So I guess theoretically, they could go forward and try to build it, but they would not be allowed to occupy the building so that they would lose money, which would make it something that they would not do.
Any other discussion?
I'm just going to make one more comment, if that's okay. This project has weighed very heavily on me. Just knowing how Gunpowder Road is very narrow and that it has flooding issues. The upcoming Department of Transportation project to improve that, of course, has been very well thought out in relation to this project being built. So I do feel very comfortable with that, but I just want to say that I do recognize, as a resident of Florence, the congestion of that area, and I appreciate planning and zoning working very hard to address those issues.
Thank you, Leslie. Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Carroll,
Yes?
Ms. Chambers, Yes. Mr. Nguyen,
Yes.
Ms. Kemper,
Yes.
Ms. Wingo.
Yes.
Mayor, motion passes 5-0.
Next is ordinance 020-2024, an ordinance relating to the adoption and approval of text amendments to the Boone County zoning regulations text as applicable to the city of Florence, Kentucky. These text amendments being to section 3655 fences as applicable only to the city of Florence, Kentucky, to allow fences within corner side yards. This ordinance adopts and approves text amendments to the Boone County zoning regulations text. These text amendments being to section 3655 fences as applicable only to the city of Florence, Kentucky, to allow fences within corner side yards subject to certain restrictions. The full text of ordinance 02024, including its exhibits, is available for examination in the office of the city clerk of the city of Florence, Kentucky, 8100 Ewing Boulevard, Florence, Kentucky, during regular office hours. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Ms. Wingo?
Second.
Ms. Kemper? Any discussion?
If I could, let me be sure I understand what we're doing here. We're moving the ability of a fence on the side to go from the back corner of a house to the front corner of the house. Is that about right?
Yeah, so currently, if you're looking, there is this illustration. Did we put this illustration on here, this slideshow? Let me see if I can find it.
Is it under documents or? Discussion?
Yep. So currently, how it would read, I don't know if you could see my arrow. The fence could only be from this corner of the house back. So you had this whole area of space that you could not utilize as a fenced-in area. It's a very common complaint. So now what this allows us to do is you'll be able to fence all this area in and have a fence in that corner side yard in the hashed area. And there's some
It's-
smaller changes to industrial as well that really don't impact much of anything, but it does make sense to allow them to have a fence in that area. This is the bigger one.
And it is, I mean, I think it's a matter of aesthetics as well. I think some
Sure.
people feel like it's
It looks
aesthetically more.
odd, the way
yeah.
our regulations read now, and if you want to see it, drive through Orleans French Quarters, and you can see all these fences on a corner side yard. They're all tucked up, and it looks just very out of place. So this will allow them to expand that out to the right-of-way line and take advantage of their full yard.
Any other discussion? I know we did talk about this at caucus, and we've had a first reading, so. Seeing none, roll call vote.
Mr. Carroll,
Yes.
Ms. Chambers,
Yes.
Mr. Nguyen. Yes. Ms. Kemper,
Yes.
Ms. Wingo.
Yes.
Mayor, motion passes 5-0.
We have ordinance O21, 2024. It's an ordinance relating to the adoption approval of text amendments to the Boone County zoning regulations text as applicable to the city of Florence, Kentucky. These text amendments being considered for enactment to regulate cannabis businesses that may become authorized by Kentucky Revised Statutes, KRS 218B.010 through KRS 218B.155. As well as House Bill 829 and other applicable law within the Boone County Planning Unit for Boone County, Kentucky, subject to the recommended terms and provisions set forth in the Technical Design Review Committee report. This ordinance adopts and approves text amendments to the Boone County zoning regulations text. These text amendments being enacted to regulate cannabis businesses. The full text of ordinance O21, 2024, including its exhibits, is available for examination in the office of the city clerk of the city of Florence, Kentucky, in the Florence Government Center, 8100 Ewing Boulevard, during regular office hours. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Ms. Wingo? Mr. Carroll? Any discussion? We did discuss this at our special meeting the day after the election that confirmed that the citizens of Florence did allow cannabis business to operate in the city of Florence. So we've acted quickly, proactively to develop these regulations, and this would be a second reading. So if there's any other discussion?
Is that map available
I
tonight?
think we did find your maps. Let's see. Was it at the end of this one, Melissa?
Yes. No, it's on a separate one.
Second one.
It's on that little picture
This
down
one?
there.
This one?
The one on the bottom,
Here comes IT.
right there.
Oh, found it. All right, so this makes it clear as mud. All of the red dots that you see on there, those are the proposed buffers. So the larger red dots, of course, are the school, and that is the state mandated 1,000-foot buffers from where medical cannabis operation could go. Some of the smaller ones are the 500-foot footprints or buffer yards to where medical cannabis dispensaries could go. The parcels you see highlighted in blue, that is the available properties. So the main thing that everybody's looking for, that the city has received literally hundreds of calls on, is from medical dispensaries. And there are 118 available parcels within the city. And if you look at it, it's really kind of north, south, east, west, and there's a central part as well that, you know, for the residents to be able to get the medicinal cannabis that they're after, all areas of Florence should be covered. So it is zoned appropriately. They would just have to go through a conditional use process through the Board of Adjustment and get approval, and then they'd be allowed to go there.
Any other discussion?
So I just want to make the comment that, Josh, thank you for working so hard on this. And we had, looks like 7,801 people that voted for allowing cannabis businesses in Florence, but we also had 4,271 people that did not want that. So to those people, I just want to say, by everything that I've seen and looking at this map, this will be very heavily regulated. This isn't something that's going to blow up all over Florence. And I think at the end of the day, everyone will be quite content with how this is going to how this could possibly roll out.
Yeah, theoretically, because there's a buffer, you cannot have medical cannabis, then right next door medical cannabis. Each of these blue parcels, once one goes in, nothing can co-locate around it. So you could have the potential of 6 total within the city of Florence, the way it's currently written. So it's not going to be like some of these other use categories that, if you drive out to Colorado, every strip center has cannabis dispensaries in it. We really didn't want that. And these zoning regulations protect against that.
They can always be modified in the future if we see
Sure.
the need.
And this is a lot of effort, a lot of studying. We looked at different states. We looked at Ohio. A lot of thought put into this, and I think it's a great plan, but, you know, we'll see how, once it's implemented, we evaluate things all the time. And if there's things that need adjustment, we'll bring it back before council and we'll discuss it.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Carroll,
Yes?
Ms. Chambers.
Yes.
Mr. Nguyen. Yes. Ms. Kemper.
Yes.
Ms. Wingo.
Yes.
Mayor, motion passes 5-0.
We have ordinance O-22, 2024. It's an ordinance relating to the adoption and approval of Chapter 122 of the City Code of Ordinances to regulate medical cannabis businesses in the city of Florence that may become authorized to conduct business pursuant to Kentucky Revised Statutes KRS 218B.010 through KRS 218B.155. Chapter 122 shall include the regulation of permits, issuance of licenses, and assessments of fees, suspension or revocation procedures, and hearings and appeals. The city's Code of Ordinances is hereby amended to include various regulations relating to medical cannabis businesses pursuant to Kentucky Revised Statutes KRS 218B.010 through KRS 218B.155 and 915 KAR Chapter 1. These regulations shall address the issuance of permits, licenses, assessment of fees, suspension, and revocation procedures. These regulations also address application procedures for the issuances of licenses and permits. The full text of Ordinance O-22, 2024, including its exhibits, is available for examination in the office of the City Clerk of the City of Florence, Kentucky, in the Florence Government Center, 8100 Ewing Boulevard, during regular office hours. Is there a motion to approve? Mr. Nguyen?
Second.
Second, Ms. Wingo. Any discussion? I would say this is companion legislation for what we just passed with the zoning. This is the business regulations and the application and license. So we did discuss this at the special meeting the day after the election as well, and we did have a first reading. So seeing no other further discussion, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Carroll,
Yes.
Ms. Chambers,
Yes.
Mr. Nguyen. Yes. Ms. Kemper.
Yes.
Ms. Wingo.
Yes.
Mayor, motion passes 5-0.
We have Resolution R6, 2024. For your consideration, this is a resolution approving and directing Mayor Abishon to execute a certain agreement between the Commonwealth of Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, Department of Highways, and the City of Florence, Kentucky for the maintenance of landscaping in and upon medians, utility strips, and areas in and around the I-75 Mount Zion interchange. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Ms. Wingo? Second, Mr. Carroll. Mr. Hall?
Thank you, Mayor. So what this is an agreement with KYTC when Mount Zion was redone. There were some islands, and I kind of showed a map of that on my memo. There were 4 islands that lie within the city of Florence. So in order to keep those maintained at a particular level that we like to see things, we need to enter into this maintenance agreement. We have done this on US 42. We have agreements on Turfway Road. So this is a pretty common practice, but it just ensures that these islands are looking nicely. It also gives us the ability, if we choose, to landscape those islands and make them more decorative or whatever we choose in that area. We don't currently have anything planned for these islands specifically in that regards. But that doesn't mean the Urban Forest Commission or something along the way at some point might propose some improvements in those intersections. So it just gives us the ability to do so.
Any other questions or comments, discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Carroll.
Yes.
Ms. Chambers.
Yes.
Mr. Wynn. Ms. Kemper.
Yes.
Ms. Wingo.
Yes.
Mayor motion passes 5-0.
There is no need for a closed session, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Mr. Carroll, second Ms. Wingo. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.